Okay, well, we're going to start with a correction. I am from Kittery Point, Geneva. No, we're all here together, right? You know, Portsmouth and Kittery together with this wonderful organization. I love it, and I'm so happy for all of you with Creative Mornings, the PKX. So great to be here. I am hashtag excited to be here to talk today about two things that always go hand in hand, social media and ethics. Okay, we're gonna make this work, okay? I'm gonna find a way to bring the two together. And we have, and it's death by 1,000 clicks. It's what can happen on social media when things go desperately wrong, okay? When they go really, really bad. By way of who I am, as Geneva said, live here. I'm originally from the Midwest, grew up, born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. Don't have much of an accent anymore. Got it back in December when I was binge watching Making a Murder on Netflix. So for about 2 weeks, I talked like this, you know. And because Stephen Avery, I do think, you know, killed the woman. So it comes in and out. But I went to school in Boston, went to graduate school at Boston University, College of Communication. At the time, the internet, I'm not going to put a year on this, was starting to get a lot bigger. This was when everybody had AOL accounts, right? And dial in, click. And at that time, even though my background was in news, I'd worked in TV and radio and print, I also loved what was coming up on the internet. I always kind of felt that there was something there that I could merge the two, and that was my final project. How could I bring the internet into mass media? And even coming out of school, WHDH Channel 7, the NBC affiliate, offered me a job. Unfortunately, it was only $7 an hour. That was not going to pay my Boston school loans. But the job didn't exist because they weren't there yet. But now we're here. Social media is a mass medium. It's traditional media really now, just like television, radio, newspaper. So it's here to stay. So that's why it's really important to talk about it. I get hired as a consultant. I help companies manage their messaging, not only across traditional channels, but with social media, because this is the message that's heard, okay? So some of my jobs, like I said, I did have a news background. I also worked in public affairs. I worked for the cruise lines. I was a director of communications for the cruise lines down in Washington, D.C. And that was right about the time when the Norwalk virus hit cruise ships. So for passengers defecating and vomiting, it wasn't a real magic time to be on the Disney Magic. But when you worked in crisis communications, it was a very magical time. So lots of work there. Then I worked for FEMA. I worked for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. They had a brand issue as well after Katrina, okay? So again, that's what we call opportunity, right? So FEMA was getting slammed in the press constantly, you know, heck of a job, Brownie, you know, the media would never ever give us a break. So I was thinking back to my BU days, why don't we bypass the editor? Why don't we bypass the Washington Post, the nightly news, and create our own story? Because FEMA, even though we kind of botched some things in Katrina, a lot of people botched things. But here FEMA is an agency that gives money to people. You lose a home, we're gonna give you cash. It's a great agency. So I brought it to the head of the communication staff and said, why don't we film our own things and go down? He said, Molly, great idea. Here's a camera. Go down and film it. So by myself, I went down to a tornado, followed a woman who lost her home, and showed what FEMA did for this woman. Brought it back to headquarters at DC, and they loved it. And that was the start of the social media program at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So it's that magic of social media. So I always see that power. So now we've transferred up here, live on the Seacoast, which is great. So now I'm working as a consultant, helping these companies. So when I was here last month, I sat right there. I had to go down to the middle school because I had to give a talk on news to fifth graders. And they asked what I did for a living, and I gave this long 2-minute bio that I'm giving you right now, but at the end of the day, one of the 11-year-olds said it in her assignment. She had to talk about what I talked about, and she said, Ms. McPherson has a lot of jobs, and one of them is helping people not to say stupid things. Basically, that's what I do. I help people not be dum-dums online. That's basically what it is. So, I'm going to start right here. This is the importance and the power of social media. Who's this man? No one. Okay. I'm going to ask you another question. 1 year ago, next week, everybody, millions of people around the world were asking this one question. Okay? I'm not going to ask you the question, but I'm going to give you the answer. And then you're going to tell me the question. Blue or gold? We all know, right? Okay. And what is it, by the way? It was blue, right? It was blue. Okay, the dress. That was a year ago in February. That was a huge story. Everybody talked about it. That was top news. One of the reasons why it was top news is because there wasn't any news going on at the exact same time. The top news story that day were 2 llamas were on the run in Arizona. That was the top news story. That's why that story took off and it was viral. This story took off because this man had bad social media practices, okay? I'm going to show you the next slide. You're going to know who this is. Ah, okay. What's this lion's name? Cecil, or Cecil, if you're from London. I had to do a radio interview about this case because I had written a blog post about the social media impact of Dr. Walter Palmer, and a man from London was on ahead of me, and he kept calling him Cecil, and I was ready to call him Cecil, so I didn't say Cecil, I just said the lion in question. I didn't want to confuse it. But at any rate, Dr. Palmer is a perfect example of how bad social media practices can go viral and why it's so important that you control your settings, because anything can bring anyone down. You can be a private person like Dr. Palmer, or you can be a very public person like, who's this? Do we even remember who this is anymore, right? We don't even know who Brian Williams is. Again, did social media bring him down? Sort of, kind of, because he did the wrong thing. He lied about covering a story about when he was in Iraq, and he was called out on Facebook. That's where it first came out, and then Stars and Stripes picked it up. But then Brian Williams managed this crisis by going back to Facebook and apologizing on Facebook, when really Crisis Comms 101 should have said, he should have gone on the air. He should have done the apology tour a little more heavy, a little earlier. It took him a long time to do it. But that's what brought him down, is because he tried to diminish it, and he used social media to do that. I start every talk here, no matter if I'm in front of a classroom, my college classroom, or if I talk to executives or adults. Digital natives and digital immigrants. Now, this originally started off as a theory, a learning theory. Dr. Mark Presky taught how kids and how adults learn. Digital natives learn one way, digital immigrants learn another. A digital native, those are the students that had technology introduced to them at a very young age, sometimes before they even go to school. These are all our kids right now that have iPads and they have laptops, and they're great on social media. Their brains are wired to understand how to think and do things with technology. Digital immigrants, on the other hand, they're the ones where technology was introduced at a much later age, okay? It was in high school, maybe college. Maybe it wasn't until they're 40 years old. So these are the baby boomers. Another tell, anybody that whipped through the line this morning with their hashtag and they're like, oh, I know who I am. Anyone that had no idea, what's a hashtag? Those are digital immigrants, okay? The people that don't even have a hashtag here. Another tell, if you're editing work, if you have to print it out on a printer and use a red pen to write it, you're a digital immigrant. If you can do it in your head and do it right on the screen, chances are you're a digital native. So tying this in now to what I'm talking about, and it's really about the messaging and the impact of what can happen on social media. I'm going to show a clip from one of my fave movies.
Jesus, story stronger than that. We got a White House librarian who says that Hunt checked out a whole lot of books. We got a secretary in Colson's office that Hunt was sitting at the desk.
Carl. Ben, that's a page 1 story.
Stick it inside someplace. This is a goddamn important story. Get some harder information next time.
Ooh, does anybody know what movie this is? Half of you, right? The Immigrants. All the President's Men. It's a great movie. It's one of my favorite movies. Carl Bernstein, Bob Woodward, they're bringing down the president. They're bringing down President Nixon. Now, when you see, who's the editor of the Washington Post at the time? Ben Bradley, of course. When Ben Bradley, played by Jason Robards, he was saying, I need the story. And Carl Bernstein saying, we have Colson, we have Colson's secretary, we have this there, we have Haldeman, we have this person, I have Deep Throat, blah, 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 blah. He said, you don't have it. Compare it to now, when a presidential election can come down in tweets and posts. 2 days ago, Donald Trump tweets, Jeb forgot to renew the rights of this domain. Guess who bought JebBush.com? Brett, who bought? Yes, of course, it's Donald Trump, okay? So the dirty tricks that they filmed, an entire movie, wrote a book, Woodward and Bernstein, they created this whole epic story on the dirty tricks of the RNC on the DNC. Now it happens in one click. That's the difference. Back then, journalistic ethics, what's right, what's wrong. I'm only going to publish something if I think it's fair, if I think it's balanced, and we can back it up as fact. Now with social media, it doesn't matter because we're all the editor. Does anybody know who the editor of the Washington Post is? No, no one does anymore because they're diminished in the sense because they're editors just like everyone else. You're all editors too. You can tweet and post whatever you want. Okay, so that brings us into the ethics today. How do we tie this into journalism ethics, freedom of the press, saying what you want to say? Well, you always have to start with legal mumbo jumbo, right? So, technology. Defamation. It goes hand in hand with journalism defamation. Libel, written, slander, it's the spoken word, okay? This is where it can get you into trouble. So now with social media, it's tweeting and posting, and with slander, it's on YouTube. So if someone films you saying something, you can get in trouble if it's not true, if you can't back it up. What this means is that basically you can call anyone a loser all you want. You can call them a frickin' loser all you want. You're not gonna get in any trouble whatsoever. But what you can't do is call them a cheetah. If you call someone a cheetah, then they can come back and say, you're wrong, you don't have the proof. But in today's video age, chances are some people do have the proof. So that's where it gets a little murky. Turn it back quickly. Technology. I give a lot of talks. I go around the country and I give talks. And I always try and sprinkle little stories, like interesting stories of things happen. Being on the seacoast, living on the seacoast, there is this word that evokes something much differently. I was in New Orleans last week and I told this story. And they say, okay, I get where your story's going. But if you say it in the seacoast, it's totally different. If this word comes up, now we can show you the word, right? What does this mean here? Has an entirely different meaning in Dallas, Texas than it does up here, right? Zumba. Zumba, this word now really you can identify social media and the power of it is with this word. Okay, so we all know the Zumba story, right? Okay, so we don't even need to go back. So we have the Zumba story. We have all the things that make a news story go. We have sex, we have Zumba, and we have a great Zumba instructor. We have Kennebunk, and we have Kennebunkport, and it's close to a presidential compound. That means there could be other people that are involved in this, and we have a black book. So now we have a great, great story. So no surprise, it was a local story, a national story, and it was an international story. So it was a huge, huge story. But it kept going on and on and on and on. And why did it go on and on? It's because of the people that were involved. We had a black book of names. So when you're covering stories today, it's not just the journalists, it's the social media looky-loos out there that want to find out who these guys are in this book, right? And so we also know we have a case where the judge is going to release the names, the police. They're going to drip out the names one by one. How many men were sitting in the seacoast just waiting for that story to go? How many of their wives were sitting on the computer waiting, like, is my husband going to be on here? So this is where you can tie into the death by 1,000 clicks, waiting for that newspaper to release it. And when they do, things happen, right? It hits the fan. So this is the cycle, and this is what's different about social media, how it affects the news and how it affects private citizens. Every reporter, every kind of looky-loo too, they start with Facebook. Everybody goes to Facebook. If your settings aren't shut down, they're going to go in there, like Dr. Palmer and Cecil. They're going to go in and they're going to find a photo of you. Okay, and then now, this is a new thing. LinkedIn, you're going to see in newspaper articles when people talk about things that happen and they have imagery there, they'll say, according to LinkedIn, this person was this or this person did this. So this is a new thing, and they will source it. Reporters will source it and say, I found this on LinkedIn. Now they have a photo, because Facebook profiles are 100% public. I don't know if anybody knows that. Well, I'm sure many of you do. Half of you do at least. That profiles are always public. Your cover page, always public. So anybody can go to it. So now we go to LinkedIn and we find, okay, what do they do for a living? Are they sketchy or, oh, look at this, they're a doctor, okay. And then they go to the Facebook pages of other people, similar names, and really we've all done it, right? Like we all snoop on Facebook and we figured out the tricks. You go to your friends, you see, do the friends have open profiles? Every reporter does this, okay? You could be swept up in it at any time. Then they're gonna go to Twitter and they're gonna see what you say publicly. Most Twitter feeds are public. You're gonna get inside the mind of a person and what they're thinking. You know, if you follow Charlie Sheen's Twitter feed, it's nutty craziness at all times. And you can see that and it's public. Geotagging, okay? If you're caught up in a scandal or someone else, a reporter can look at the geotag. If you say you weren't cheating, really, well, your tweet says that you were here at this time and it's public and everyone can see that. They'll look at Instagram accounts, they'll go to YouTube, and then they'll write their story. So the propellant now, what's getting these stories to go is the type of news out there. So it's not traditional media anymore. It's these sites. How many people go to BuzzFeed? Does anybody? Oh, come on. Yes, okay, great. BuzzFeed, Daily Mail, the Daily Online, these are now the aggregate sites. They're the ones that they're putting all these stories out there. The Kenny Bunk Zumba story lasted for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks online. Why? Because they kept going into these guys' Facebook accounts and they kept pulling down photos of these guys and putting it on there. You may not have known that unless you followed it. And then the wives, and there'd be a picture of the wives on there and the kids. Just happened to know someone that was potentially going to be on that book, and he kind of knew he was going to be on that book, and said, I need crisis advice. What do I do? Get off of Facebook immediately. And he'd never heard of the guy. The name's not even involved in there. So that's how you shut it down. And this is what's happening now. All of these people have been affected by this digital death spiral, right? Anthony Weiner, bad social media practices. Bad political practices, marital practices, but really it all came down with social media. Martin Shkreli, we all know who he is. No, he's the CEO. I gave this talk last week and I said, what's Martin Shkreli's brand? And they said, he's a douchebag. I went, okay, that works. But he's the CEO right now, the one that bought the Wu-Tang record, but he's also testified at Congress. He's the one that inflated the cancer medicine. Okay, everybody hates this guy. His brand is, yeah, I know, I'm a jerk, I get it. But now the traditional media is coming back to smack him. They're saying, okay, you want to be a jerk online? We're going to bring you down, and that's what's happening to him. We know her in this corner, Rachel Dolezal. A year ago, no one knew who she was, but when the African-American president of the NAACP in Spokane, Washington, said she was African-American, and it turns out they found out online that she was a Caucasian from Idaho and very white, and her parents outed her, and her parents did an interview with the Daily Online. Her career went into a tailspin, okay? Went into a digital death spiral. And Bill Cosby, do we really need to say anything about Bill Cosby? This all started with a meme, and this is the reason why I include him. A meme is what brought this guy down, because he was coming out with his campaign and he thought it was wise at the same time to do a social media contest, Meme Me. Well, if you Google Bill Cosby meme, you're going to be entertained for hours, okay? Because it's hysterical. So more people too. It can affect your brand. When the New York City Police Department, they did hashtag your experience with the New York City Police Department. A lot of people showed horrible tweets of that. Jared Fogle of Subway, this guy that attacked the Uber driver last November. Does anybody remember him? Who did he work for? Taco Bell. Now Taco Bell's involved in some guy beating down an Uber driver, okay? Again, it was social media. The Uber driver said, okay, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. And that's exactly what he did. Brought down this guy's career, but it also became a Taco Bell story. Ray Rice. So the TMZ, there was a great story in the New Yorker just this week about TMZ, Harvey Levin, the editor of TMZ. It was fabulous because he admitted, they say, do you pay for your stories? Do you pay for your sources? He said, absolutely, no shame whatsoever, because that's what sells. That's what people care about. They want to see this. Ray Rice, so the NFL had issues. They had concussion issues. But Ray Rice blew it wide open because it turns out that a guy working in security used his phone, filmed this footage, sold it to TMZ, and then it went everywhere. And the impact of it, we still feel even this week. So we have Ray Rice, and then it's Adrian Peterson beating this child, Aaron Hernandez, Deflategate, so the NFL, it's constantly, the spiral in the NFL, even comes up to this week. Peyton Manning. He's got drug problems and woman problems. Did you guys know that? It's like all in the news right now. May not be a top news story, but it's all over social media. If you Google Peyton Manning and women, you're going to see what he's dealing with right now. So why does this matter in terms of how we use social media? If you're a digital native, you might be familiar. Is anyone familiar with this site? Roast Me, a couple of you? Okay. Roast Me, what it is you take a photo of yourself with the word Roast Me on it, take a photo, you send it to Reddit, it started at Reddit, and they will make fun of you. That's what you get in return. There isn't one digital immigrant in this room that would ever do that in a million years, okay? I barely wanted to get up and talk because I didn't get my nails done. These digital native millennials are saying, yeah, make fun of me. These were the two tame ones that I could use. I couldn't even use the other ones because they're so bad. But it's hysterical. But this is our new generation. This is the millennials, because millennials, now it's good, they love to share. They love to collaborate. That's why they're great workers. They share everything. They don't care if you're a CEO. They don't care if you're an intern. We're all going to be in this together. We're digital immigrants, they're more hierarchical. They have a CEO down all the way to the admin. So who is that perfect person to handle social media, right? Now, everybody wants some millennials, but everybody really needs, though, the people that understand strategy, they understand risk. They understand how to use the technology to make sure that your brand doesn't spiral. You need the person that will say, you know, Mr. Cosby, Dr. Huxtable, I grew up with you. I think it may not be a great idea to do a social media campaign, you know, when there is a video on YouTube of a comedian saying that you've raped 30 women, you know, maybe you don't want to do it. Who is the person that does it? It's the digital founders, okay? These people are the ones that are right in the middle. It's Generation X, Generation Y, people that love Nirvana, people that know the words to It's the End of the World by R.E.M. If you can sing that entire song, then you're going to be the person they want to hire, okay? Because you're going to understand both. You went to college and you sat in your Mac lab doing your finals and you lost it because you didn't save it in time, right? Every single person that dealt with that now knows how to manage technology and knows how to manage reputation. These are the people that you want to hire, so don't hit it yet. Because social media, just to wrap this up, to understand the ethics, the right and the wrong of social media, it all starts with you. It starts with how you view social media. It starts with your privacy settings. If you're working someplace, remember, everyone is their own brand. You don't just work for an organization now. You are the brand that works for the organization. So if you get in trouble, you're going to get your business in trouble as well, just like the Taco Bell executive. Just like a woman on New Year's Eve who, there was a woman having a heart attack at a restaurant in Indianapolis. And so she put on Facebook like, oh my gosh, some junkie is passing out and it's ruining my New Year's Eve. Okay, well it turns out that junkie was a 79-year-old woman having a heart attack, but it went to this woman's place of employment, found out she was a hairdresser, then the hairdresser got involved, okay? And it's because she had something publicly on file. So the takeaway from this, watch your privacy settings, watch what you say, watch what the people around you say in your family, check your kids' phones all the time, make sure their privacy settings are set. Remember that every journalist, social media looky-loo, they're all out there, they all want to creep around everybody's account, okay? And finally, if you are bootstrapping your social media, that's what I tend to do. I work with a lot of companies that they don't have full digital departments, they don't have full social media departments, they have to bootstrap it. So I tell them how to do it. Who do you want to hire? You want to hire that digital founder. You want to hire the founder that understands that social media stories, they move by excitement, they move by emotion, and they move by this. Digital founders, right? 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 Hallelujah? Yep. Right, Gen Xers? Yes, that's what makes social media move.
Darn, that's the end.
Thank you. Is this on? Anything? Yes.
What would you say if you could predict the future for Kanye West with his recent meltdown? Would you say that he's going to continue to tweet spiraling out of control or enter a rehab program?
A rehab program for what? Bad digital media skills. Wouldn't that be great?
If something happens like, oh, he's just really exhausted.
Yes.
Rehabilitation, and then then he comes back, he's like, oh, I've thought about my consequences and I'm better now because I had some time to sleep. When really he's just a psycho.
Okay, so what I usually do is, I read like legal opinion all night, social media opinion all night. I spend a lot of time deep in the weeds learning about theory, and I only spend a couple minutes reading about Kanye West. That's not true. I've read the whole story. I know exactly what you're talking about. I am fascinated by people in their PR spiral. Fascinated. So Kanye West, and I will admit I've spent more time than I should and even care to admit that I do, because it is a PR conundrum what he's going through. So you have Kanye West, who's a part of the whole Kardashian clan right now. He showed his new line, his Yeezus wear, okay? So he's on a promotional tour. 2 days ago, he comes out and says, I'm broke. I'm $50 million in debt. And he's mad at Kylie. Follow this. If you immigrants don't care, it's okay. You can tune out. But then there's Kylie Jenner, whose father's Bruce Jenner, who's now Caitlyn Jenner. She wants to work for Puma, and she didn't work for Kanye West. And so he's in debt. Now is Kris Kardashian. Now she's saying that Kanye is kind of crazy. I think it's just a part of the whole plot. I really do. I think any Kardashian is really wise. They understand the game. Kanye is a part of it as well, although I do think he's going to be dumped fairly soon. Kris Kardashian will cut those ties. But what that family is, and we all make fun of them, but they really are genius. They are social media influencers. That's how they make their money. Because people say that all the time, like my mother will say, what is it with them? Like, why do people care about them? People care about them because they make money for businesses. They're social media influencers. Puma will give Kylie Jenner all this money to wear Puma, and then she'll start off this dust-up with her brother-in-law, Kanye, and then it creates more brand awareness for Puma, because now Puma is a part of the news story, the Kanye news story. That's a social media influencer. But the brand is the Kardashian brand, okay? That's a whole brand, and Kanye is a part of it. So no matter what happens, you always have to scrutinize it for really what it is. It's a part of the campaign. So I think there will be some impending divorce, but it's a part of the whole campaign. But that's a great question. He's spiraling right now. Yes?
Which presidential candidate do you think is doing social media second best?
Second? Are we saying who's best? Bernie's best? Who's best?
Well, the one who took the whole news cycle by fighting with the Pope was Trump. I feel like he's hijacking everything.
Okay.
Okay, who's best? And second.
Okay, so let me just put my messaging hat on for a moment. This has nothing to do with political affiliation whatsoever. If you were even watching the town halls yesterday, what you are going to give Donald Trump for messaging, the man is a master communicator. And what a lot of people are missing is they're just listening to what he's saying. They're not listening to how he's doing it. For one, he's the voice of his own Twitter feed. That's number one. The reason why that works, and this is a social media lesson, authenticity works. If you are the person behind that feed, it's going to work. Compared to another candidate, let's say Hillary Clinton, you read a tweet, she tweets during the debate. She's on stage, but she's actively tweeting, and in the first person too. So there's some person, some digital person, some intern maybe behind it. But Donald Trump, my God, every time he sends something out, that is from Donald J. Trump. He is a master communicator. He had a very popular show on NBC. That's why he's doing so well. It's not so much about what he's talking about. I mean, the man wants to build a wall. He's talking about all these crazy things, but he's in the lead. He's down in South Carolina right now, and he's in the lead, and it works. And he had this great town hall talk with Anderson Cooper last night on CNN. He was the most authentic man talking there. So that's why he really is taking off. It all comes down to communication. And where he's struggling, like Jeb Bush kind of struggled, he tweeted a photo of a gun. Instead of it being about Jeb Bush, it became an issue about, oh, look at America. Now they're tweeting with a photo of a handgun when people are dying. Yes, exactly. See, it's just not smart social media practices. So to answer who is number two, I don't know if I could come up with number two, but for my class, Social Media and Politics, we followed the campaigns of everyone. And the ones that had the great hashtags, stand with Rand, that worked in the beginning. Hillary Clinton, her logo with the H that she can put and embellish in anything, that works. But now when we're getting to crunch time, it all comes down to traditional media, which is communication. And that's why Trump is Trump. Anything else? Yes.
Isn't that mystifying, though, that Trump can admonish the Pope? Isn't that poor social? I mean, his currency is that he can say these things and somehow miraculously he's able to capitalize on. That's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating. But
See, this is what fascinates me too. This is why I love it. He cut down the Pope of all the people. I would never, ever, because you never even know if you say anything to the Pope, what's going to happen to you. Like, ah. But you know what? If you watched him yesterday, he backtracked a little. He backtracked and he said, well, I don't know exactly what the Pope said. But then when you read the context of everything that the Pope said, he really wasn't just attacking Trump. He started in a place, but they led him there. And the tweets, 140 characters, only said, any man, paraphrasing on this, any man that would want to put up a wall is not a Christian. You know, that's a great quote, by the way. It is great. But it's taken a little bit out of context because it came from the issue of Mexicans. So he really wasn't bashing Trump, but in the tweet, he was. But again, he's unscathed. He attacked the Pope. Do you go any higher in the Pope? No, yet he's still number one. You know, and you can do it. Why? He's a communicator.
There's a question to that in ethics, right? Here's this person who's in front of us every day for good or for, I think, evil.
Yeah.
So when he and so where is that ethical line? So, I mean, isn't that telling of us when here's this person who still has huge popularity in the United States right now, undeservedly so, some people might think. And he's I mean, that is to just the Pope, like you think that ethically, we all recognize that, or the people who follow him would know the difference between right and wrong, and really kind of the tipping point. So it is kind of an interesting mirror back on people who are following him and supporting someone like that.
Yeah, why is it a digital death spiral? Like, why is it?
Right, so why? Because he really tips. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Why? Again, because Donald Trump is a master communicator. He understands how to message. He understands how to communicate. He understands how to talk in sound bites. Even if you watched, I don't know if anybody watched him at the town hall debates yesterday, explain the Pope issue. He didn't do a bad job. He kind of got out of it in a way. And again, it doesn't go down to ethics. It's all politics. It's all polling. It's the fact that he's in South Carolina right now. Do people in South Carolina love Republicans that love to inflame Democrats? Yeah, they love him. They love him. Because what's the counter of Donald Trump? Hillary. Hillary has her issues right now. And then we have Bernie from here. So Trump is on a roll. And it's because, again, it just goes down. He's a master communicator. You can criticize the Pope and still live the next day. You're a pretty darn good communicator. Yeah. Last question, too. Yeah.
I'm an immigrant, but I'm a mother of two natives.
Yes, we all are.
Being an immigrant, and when I was a child in school, I learned penmanship, and I learned how to write letters.
Yes.
And so a lot of that just had to do with how to be a decent person, how to be polite, how to think things through before you do them. And I'm sort of wondering if in our educational system nowadays, there's anything akin to that for the natives, as far as teaching students, you know, this is how you communicate. You know, this is the you know, this is where you don't diss the Pope. Or, you know, their equivalent of learning penmanship, cursive, and learning how to write, you know, dear Mrs. Smith, thank you for the gift. And, you know, it's kind of, I don't see that happening. And my kids are, you know, in their 20s, so they're native, but, you know, it was still a little newish to them when they were young. And I don't see any of that happening.
No, it's a lost art. And this week I asked my 13-year-old daughter to write a thank you note for a birthday gift. And she complained like, and then she wrote it and it looked like the words of a serial killer. You know, it's just like, you couldn't even read it because they don't write anything anymore. So no, there isn't penmanship. And now with technology and keyboards, no one's gonna write anything. They're not even gonna know how to use a pen.
This is all, you know, it forms their way of thinking and their way of behaving. And
right.
How you know, I don't have a Twitter account now because I was so unhappy with what was happening to my youngest daughter with Twitter in high school. And the things that I read that students posted on Twitter about teachers, I mean, it just you know, blew me away.
Yeah.
How horrific the behavior was.
Yeah, and that is a whole other category, and I get asked that about all the time, but there's good and bad to both. There's bad about kids having Instagram and all that, but the good about it is that it's helping them be more social, I think, and kids are learning now how to manage, just like Trump and Pope, they're managing publicly. That's the good thing. They're understanding risk a lot earlier at a much younger age. They understand the ramifications if you say something wrong. Instead of when we were growing up, it's just what we said to one friend. But now they're saying it to the masses. So they're going to get that kind of burn back a lot quicker. So that's one good thing about social media. It just kind of it amplifies the risk and the cause and effect if you do something or say something wrong on social media. Okay, I think that's it.
Well, no, it's actually.
Oh, okay. I thought you were giving me the high sign.
I actually have a question for you.
Oh, that was a question. I'm sorry. I thought that was a hype. I'm like, stop talking.
Do you want? I mean, I know we're good. We're gonna take a couple more a little bit.
Couple more. Okay.
My question for you though is for natives and immigrants, like before you tweet or post something, if there were a couple questions that you should ask yourself before you did, what would you say they should be before you did put something out there?
It's the same rule that applies. Do you do this with email? Do you ever write an email, pause, and put it away, and then go back to it? One that's always a good trick, because even though that Gmail says, oh, we can get your emails back for you, it's really, really hard, especially when you're under the panic button of trying to get something back and retrieve it. You can't digitally. With social media now, I mean, I don't know if everybody agrees. Are you on it constantly? Like you're constantly typing, you're constantly messaging. You can't sit and pause and hold on every single thing that you say. The one thing that I would put out there that's really important, and it speaks to your question, make sure your grammar is good. That's a biggie, okay? And to look at the risk and reward of it. Why are you saying this? Okay, there are going to be mothers on Facebook that all they post about how awesome their kids are, like every single post. That's just who they are, okay? And that's now their brand. But think about what your brand is. That's really it. If your brand is someone where I share everything, fine. Then if you do kind of spill and do something stupid, people say, well, that's just what they do. But just always do pause. You know, think, are you going to hurt someone else if you do this? Are you going to hurt your own brand? Are you going to hurt your own family? If you have a friend in a photo that does look fat, don't tag her. Don't post it, okay? Because it really now in 2016, that's like the worst thing that you can do. It's worse than going up to a person and saying you're fat, putting them on Facebook for that. That's the worst thing you can do. Just think, put yourself in the other person's shoes. That's what I would say on the other end of that. Yes?
I'm having trouble categorizing myself, and I was listening to the categories. I was born in 1954.
Everyone, what is she?
I had my first email account in 1979 or 78, and I had my first home computer in 1980. I played Pong.
What?
On a home computer.
Oh, yeah,
so 1970, I played Pong for the first time on a home computer.
Yes, so did I.
I build customized WordPress websites now, and I still know DOS.
Well, then you shouldn't even be here. You should just leave. I don't want to know.
DOS commands and
do you?
Scripts, yes.
Well, then you're just awesome.
So the other thing is, though, I didn't know, up until Thanksgiving, I thought the Kardashians were an alien race on Star Trek.
Well, they kind of are, so you're right about that. No, that's great. You are definitely the exception, not the rule, though, okay? Yeah, no, I'm a Pong player myself. I remember Pong, yeah, but you didn't learn on Pong. That's the difference. It's where really you did your term paper. Were you writing your term paper or were you typing your term paper in college? That's usually, that's how you learn. Anything else? Yeah.
Just a quick question, just kind of going back to when you were talking about the natives and the
immigrants.
And kind of the combination of the two when it loops back into business.
Yes.
So that, I mean, I think I'm an immigrant. I know I'm an immigrant. But I also work, my clients are primarily natives. And it was interesting hearing this gal speak about her kids and the penmanship and the grammar and writing letters. And it was interesting. I had an experience where I hired someone younger than me who was probably more of a native. And the way that she composed emails was not the way that I was taught how to write. And I also wanted to make sure that she composed how I wanted to as for my business. But it was just an interesting kind of how you kind of spoke to having those who are basically older and younger, but the older, professionals guiding youngers to also within that business world versus
Mm-hmm.
just being able to navigate the social world that they've grown up with and the technology that they've grown up with.
Yeah, it's this, I talk about that all the time. This ethics week, I didn't really bring it in too much, but I will touch into it because it is important. What you value, and this is what immigrants and the founders value, they value grammar. They value where an explanation point. That's what natives do. Like every Facebook post ends with an explanation point. It drives me crazy. And especially if I'm working, like I have clients that are emergency management, so they'll say, oh, we have our new safety kits out. Yay, explanation point. Like, oh, you don't have power for 5 weeks. Always explanation point. Like, what is that? So that's, I think, what you're talking about. It's that the older people, the immigrants, write Facebook posts like they're writing a term paper sometimes. So it's kind of dry sometimes, kind of too long. You can't go over 140 characters. You have to know when to use an emoji. These natives, they know how to write socially. They know how to, their brains can come up with 140 characters just in their head, where we have to go back and retype and go over again. So you do want to meld that too. So you want to have that kind of overall messaging, like what's our goal? What are we trying to achieve? Who are we also trying to reach? You're going to, on Facebook, you're going to have a huge audience. It could be different based on what your client base is. If this is a widget for young people, you're going to speak in widget talk. You're going to speak in listicles. These are the 5 reasons why you have to have this product. But maybe you might be more cause marketing or something that's really important or serious. Then you're going to spend more time with your words. You're going to wordsmith things so they sell better, they have a different meaning. So that's a problem, and that's why I get hired, frankly, is because a lot of people don't have these social media budgets. Who's responsible for the messaging, the bigger messaging, and who's actually typing it? Because it's different and it is an issue. And that's where you have to sit down and tell someone, okay, we can't have a smiley emoji when we're talking about this very sad thing. But eventually they'll get there. Eventually you'll get there. Or hire a digital founder. They'll understand. They'll do both. Yes?
Do we think natives are going to get better with the wordsmithing as they get older, or do you think that in general the wordsmithing is not going to matter anymore?
Yeah, it's all hand in hand now, right? It's concurrent. So the whole world is changing. Like people don't sit and read newspapers anymore for a reason. They don't have the time. Nobody has the time to carry a newspaper. So everything is mobile, everything is quick. Everything's a listicle. So people more and more, the older that we get immigrants, it's very sorry to say this, that eventually we die sooner than the natives. And then it's just going to be a world of natives. And then everything's going to be a listicle. Can you imagine? That's how everyone's going to talk. And it's not to say that natives are wrong and they're bad and they don't know what they're doing. There's a real value there. Again, they love to share. They love to collaborate. They're going to share everything with everyone. But what we're losing is that grammar piece, that penmanship piece, the reading piece. Just even reading a book and touching paper. You want to make sure that they understand how to write. And I tell this to my kids, understand how to write. Don't lose the art of writing and being a good writer. If you are, then you're going to be great at social media too. So that's what natives need to keep in mind too. Mm-hmm.
I would argue.
Okay, make it a good one. You already started with, I'm going to argue, so that's not a good question.
Yeah. I would argue that natives are it's important for them to learn the writing and whatnot, but maybe we should do a better job of teaching them the ethics and the your own personal brand at a younger age now, because we're teaching them the penmanship and whatnot, or we might be, but should we also be considering they're going to grow up in a world where the immigrants are gone and the natives are that's the lay of the land. Should we be doing a better job with the younger kids, middle school age, of teaching them how to manage that, that changing conversation in the workplace, in their personal brand. So.
Right, and that's basically what I do. Yeah. I do that all the time. I do it at work, I do it with my clients, and I do it at home. My kids constantly roll their eyes because if something happens with Kanye or with anyone, or if my daughter's sitting and watching the stupid Kardashians, I'll hit pause and tell them, okay, this is the reason why you can't do this. You can't do this, and you can't do this, you can't do this. So it does start at home. It's that messaging. It's like, well, how do you protect your brand? Because that's the big change. During the time of the Washington Post, the brand was the Washington Post. That was the brand. Now, every single person in this room, you have your own brand. Every 12-year-old with an Instagram account, they have their own brand. And when they go to high school and then they go to college, then they're going to get hired. They're not going to hire you based on your resume. They're going to hire you based on your brand. They're going to look at your Instagram feed. They're going to look at your blog. And by the time all these pre-tweens, teens now are going to be hired and out of college, everything's going to change. All the immigrants, sorry, we're not going to be alive or we won't be working anymore. But it's all going to be natives, but it's going to be the power of who can be heard, who can do it the best, and who has the best imagery, and who can communicate everything that needs to be said in 140 characters or less. Okay? Thank you, everyone. It's fun. Okay?